Guys, welcome to a brand new episode of Hellmouth Hotline. I'm your host, Rodney Stewart, and we're at it fairly late this evening. Usually I like to get these uploaded for 9 PM GMT, but yes, I'm trying my best to get my ass back in shape these days, so I'm training 3 nights a week with a personal trainer, which gets me off to a late start. And I really should have watched this movie yesterday so I could get at it tonight and get it uploaded on time. But I did promise I was going to get it. New episodes out on a daily basis if possible. And I'm going to try and stick to that. So we're getting into a little chat about A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, Dream Warriors. Alright, legends, so as I said in the last review of A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2, Freddy's Revenge, I kind of felt that was a little bit out of place in the movies for some weird reason. Like, it's a slasher movie, it's a Freddy Krueger movie, it is what it is, but I don't know, it's just never I watch these movies back to back, I don't know, there's just something about it. It feels kind of out of place, but this one here, I have to say, Dream Warriors, I have got a soft spot for this film. I really did enjoy this one. I enjoy it every time I watch it, but this one in particular, and the run of Freddy Krueger movies, is probably, the first one is iconic, it's great. Again, the second one is a little bit, but the third one, I think, came out swinging, and you start to get the version of Freddy that started becoming a superstar whenever we got to this third movie. It was just like the films became weirdly less and less about the victims in the movie, but it was more a Freddy movie than anything else. He became a horror legend superstar, and it was just such a weird way for this thing to go. All these movies back in the 80s, Halloween and then Friday the 13th, you've got your main villain, and I don't know, they just became celebrities at a time. It's such a weird thing to say that whenever you think about this character of Freddy Krueger, as when he was alive he was a child killer, and when he got killed he became this mad demon that stalked children in their sleep. Such a weird thing to be saying that this character became a celebrity, but of course, part 3, it's the third part in the franchise, of course. It's kind of stupid to say that. It was directed by Chuck Russell, and the story was developed by Wes Craven, of course, along with Bruce Wagner, and it stars Heather Langenkamp, who's back from the first movie. Whenever I watched these again, I didn't expect her to turn up. Like, I knew at some point she was in the movies again, but it kind of took me by surprise the first time I watched this film to see Nancy Thompson back, but makes perfect sense for the story that they're telling. This movie was released February 27th, 1987, so this is definitely one that I remember being in the video store when me and my father would go across. We had a thing every Saturday, we'd go and rent out a few movies. Back in 87, I was I was born in 78, so in 87 I wasn't that old. So I always remember the posters for this movie in particular, but up in the video store, and you were always fairly interested in checking these movies out, but you weren't allowed to because you just weren't old enough for that stuff. How much did this movie make? It made, domestically, when it came out, it made 44.8 million, on a budget of just over 4 million, which kicks ass. Do you know what I mean? That's like 44.8 million these days, and if you hear about a movie been released and making that domestically, It's not much these days. The budget for films is insanely huge. $4 million budget these days would be probably classed as an extremely low budget movie. I suppose even back then it was fairly low budget, but what they do in this film is flipping amazing for a budget of only $4 million. It received mostly positive reviews from critics and is considered by many to be one of the best films in the Elm Street series. I would highly agree with that there. The third one, at this point, and it has been probably 10, maybe 11 years since I actually watched these movies back to back properly, but the third one always stands out to me. Let me see, let's get on to the meat and potatoes of the storyline. It's 1987, a year after the events of the previous film. Teenager Kristen Parker dreams Freddy Krueger is chasing her. He attacks her in a bathroom after he thinks she's already awake. That's something they successfully pulled off in this movie as well. It was the same in A Nightmare on Elm Street and in Freddy's Revenge. They kind of blended the lines between the dream world and the real world very, very well. And they got off to a fantastic start in this one. Basically, Freddy attacks her. I'm not going to get into major detail on how he does it, but in the dream, he slashes Kristen, but when she wakes up and is found by her mother, her wrist has been cut, and she's actually, in her other hand, she's holding a razor blade. So Freddy is killing kids in this movie and setting them up to look like suicide attempts, essentially. Believing Kristen to be suicidal, her mother admits her to Weston Hills Psychiatric Hospital. Psychiatric, there's a new word for you. She's admitted to the psychiatric hospital, where and I can't say that word wrong so many times. Let's try it once more, shall we? Her mother admits her to Weston Hills Psychiatric Hospital. Got it right that time. Happy days. She's placed under the care of Dr. Neil Gordon. At the hospital, Kristen fights the orderlies who try to sedate her because she fears falling asleep, along with all the other kids that are in this hospital. They're all basically dreaming of Freddy Krueger, and he's out to get them, but they haven't made the connection properly yet. The new intern therapist, Nancy Thompson, turns up. She hears Kristen going over the little rhyme, 1, 2, Freddy's coming for you, 3, 4, you better lock your door. And when she gets to the last line of the rhyme, which never sleep again, she can't get it out. She's that wound up. Nancy walks in, she says, never sleep again. So she instantly makes the connection with Kristen, and Kristen knows Nancy can be here to help her. She befriends her. Nancy is introduced to the rest of Dr. Gordon's patients. Philip, a habitual sleepwalker. Kincaid, a tough kid from the streets who is prone to violence. Jennifer, a hopeful television actress prone to cigarette burns. She burns herself with cigarettes to keep herself awake. Will, who uses a wheelchair due to prior suicidal attempt. Taryn, a recovering drug addict, and Joey, the youngest, who is too traumatized to speak. He's completely mute in the movie. One night, Freddy attacks Kristen in her dreams, but she unwittingly pulls Nancy into her dream, allowing them to escape. That was an interesting little sequence right there. Of course, Nancy, coming from the first film, has a history with Freddy Krueger. She knows what she's dealing with, and this girl has, from her childhood, if she had any nightmares, she had this ability to actually, and she says she used to bring her father into her dreams to protect her if she was having a bad dream. And, you know, the next day, her father would tell her about the dream, thinking that it was his, but it was actually her dream, and she brought him into it. So that's an interesting thing. Over the next 2 nights, Freddie throws Philip off a roof and kills Jennifer by smashing her head onto a television. Now, the death of Philip, again, it's made it look like a suicide attempt, a successful attempt. He actually does die. He creates these puppets, like the string puppets, and Freddie appears in the dream, and he slashes both of Philip's arms and both of his legs, and he actually rips the veins and everything out of his arms and legs, and actually walks him to the top of the building like a puppet. And before he falls to his death, the rest of the kids wake up. They're alerted to what's happening. They're all freaking out, screaming at him to wake up. But looking up at him, he's wide awake, and you see this huge, inside the dream, of course, there's this giant version of Freddy Krueger standing over the top of the building, and the veins and coming from Philip's arms and legs is attached to Freddy's fingers, and of course he uses his blade to cut the strings, and the guy falls to his death. The girl Jennifer was smashing her head into the TV. She's into acting. Of course, she's burning herself a cigarette to stay awake. Freddy actually appears on the TV screen, and then it goes to static. And when she goes to the television, in the television room of this hospital, these 2 robotic arms come out the other side of the TV and lift her up. Freddy's head comes up out of the top of it, and this is pretty much the first of Freddy's real one-liners, and the dark wit humour coming from Freddy Krueger. This is prime time bitch before he slams her head into the TV and kills her. The movie goes to those places quite a bit in this movie. They knew that they were onto something with Freddy Krueger, and the celebrity status that this killer was getting in cinema, and they began milking it in this movie, and they kept going over the next 2 or 3 movies. Where are we at? Every time I'm recording a podcast, I lose my place and my notes. I am an idiot. Okay. In the next group session, Nancy reveals to the remaining patients that they are the last of the Elm Street kids, the surviving children of those who banded together and burned Freddy Krueger to death many years ago. Both Nancy and Neil encourage them to try group hypnosis so that they can experience a shared dream and discover their dream powers. This is where the dream warriors are going to be coming from. In the dream, Joey wanders off and is captured by Freddy. Joey has this crush on one of the female nurses in the hospital, and Freddy uses that to his advantage to get him into a room on his own in the dream world. And as the nurse, he lets Joey strip her/him down to her underwear. She's absolutely stunning, and yes, she ends up tying Joey to the bed, arms and feet tied to the bed with this tongue that shoots out of her mouth. So 4 different tongues, 2 arms, 2 legs, tied to the bed, and then of course reveals to be Freddy. And Freddy, using his powers of the nightmare, the bed drops from below the kid, and he's suspended above the mouth to hell. Essentially, you just see this big gaping hole below him, and fire way off in the distance below him. Of course, the rest of the kids, the hypnosis session works. All the kids plus Nancy and Neil, they're in the dream world. Nancy and Neil are relieved off duty when one of the other doctors in the hospital comes in during this and wakes them, essentially, which is pretty lucky for them all, because at this point in the movie, like, Freddy has them in the back foot. He could have quite easily taken everybody out at this point, but Joey is in a deep coma. The rest of the kids, along with Nancy and Neil, are woken up. The head of the hospital isn't happy about what's going on here, and Nancy and Neil, they're relieved of duty, told to get out. A nun who is randomly appearing throughout the movie turns up, Sister Mary Helena, and she tells Neil that Freddy is the son of a young woman on the hospital staff who was accidentally locked in a room with hundreds of mental patients who raped her continually, and that the only way to stop Freddy Krueger is to lay his bones to rest. He and Nancy ask her father, Donald Thompson, where the bones are hidden, but he's uncooperative. He's, after the events of A Nightmare on Elm Street, and seeing what happened to his daughter and the death of his wife, he has just, the relationship between him and Nancy has broken down, and he just is pretty much, when you find him in this movie, he's pretty much drinking to forget everything. They get a call. He pretty much refuses flat out, but he tells Nancy, don't stay away so long the next time. They get a call from the hospital. Nancy rushes back when she learns that Kristen has been sedated. When Kristen found out that Nancy was fired and kicked out of the building, she went off and won, and they sedated her, put her into the quiet room. Neil, he stays behind to convince Donald to help him. Nancy and the others again engage in a group hypnosis session to reunite with Kristen in the dream world, but they're all separated by Freddy. Taryn and Will are killed by Freddy, fairly quickly. There's a lot of stuff that's been packed into this movie. It's the movie is only 96 minutes long, but the story that they're telling in here, you could quite easily, this movie could have quite easily been 2 hours plus. It really could have been. There's a lot of stuff in there that they could have spent a little bit more time on. It's not that the film is bad or suffers because of its length, but there's just, it's very much packed in there. So Taryn and Will pretty much meet up with Freddy, and in the dream world they have different abilities, different things that they are good at, what they want to be good at. Kristen is she's like an Olympic person who can do all these crazy moves and maneuvers, and she's like, gold medal standard. That comes into a fight with Freddy later in the movie. But where are we at? Taryn is the one that's a recovering drug addict. In the dream world, she sees herself as like a punk rock chick with two switchblades, and she's fully confident in herself, and she's bad to the bone, essentially. So whenever her and Freddy meet up together, she actually fights him, gets a shot on him, but Freddy, instead of having the one hand with the razor sharp blades on it, he lifts both of his hands at one point, and the four fingers in one hand, the four fingers in the other hand, they're all needles, and he's like, using her own weakness against her. And when she looks down at her arms, she's got scars on both arms from all the drugs that she's injected over the years, and you see them, they're like little mouths that are like, like getting ready. It's just like we want the drugs sort of deal. And Freddy pumps her full of drugs, kills her, essentially, gives her an OD in the dream. Of course, you die in the dream. In a Freddy Krueger movie, you die in the real world. The other guy, I thought that I enjoyed Will, because Will's seen himself, he's like, he's in a wheelchair, but in the dream world, he can stand up, he can walk, he can do everything that he can't do in the real world, but he sees himself as, like, at one point earlier in the movie, they're playing a game of Dungeons and Dragons, and he sees himself like a wizard, and that's what he appears as. That's his powers to fight Freddy with in the dream world. And if you're going to compare this character to anybody, if you actually ever seen the 80s cartoon Dungeons and Dragons, there's a guy in it that he's basically the little wizard in it, and this guy and that cartoon character sounds so much alike. And I actually took a little look there to see who the actor was that played Will in the movie, and I thought to myself, okay, did this guy actually voice the character from Dungeons and Dragons? Because they sound so much alike, it's freaky. But as far as I can tell, just a quick Google search on what I could get on Dream Warriors plus Dungeons and Dragons, then whatever was in IMDb, it seems to be two different actors, but the similarities are absolutely striking. So check out this movie and jump back and check out the cartoon Dungeons and Dragons from the 80s. That's a good watch too, but this kid in this movie literally is just the live action version of this cartoon character. But he fights Freddy with his magical powers, and Freddy quite quickly takes him out by ripping his heart out of his chest, which you didn't see that much of, but you're led to believe that's how he killed him. So those two are dead. Anyway, Nancy and Kincaid find one another. The trio rescue Joey, along with where are we? Did I miss something there? Okay, Nancy, in the dream world, Nancy finds Kristen, and then Kincaid find the both of them. The trio rescue Joey, but are unable to defeat Freddy because he has become too powerful due to the souls he's been absorbing. He pulls back his jumper in this movie, and you see all these little faces of children across his chest and his stomach, and they're all screaming, and he's just like, the power I'm getting from the souls of the children are making me basically unstoppable. But sensing that his remains have been found in the real world, Donald, Nancy's father, and the other guy, what's his face? Gosh, why have I forgotten his name? I have completely blanked on it. Neil, alright. In the real world, Donald, Nancy's father, and Neil, the doctor, they have found Freddy Krueger's bones, and Freddy appropriates his own skeleton. They're about to bury Freddy Krueger's remains in the ground. There's a bottle of holy water with them and a cross, and once this happens, Freddy's soul will be put to rest, and he'll be no longer causing any trouble for anybody. And once in the dream world Freddy realises what's going on, he pops into the real world possessing his own skeleton, which, whenever I think about it that way, A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 isn't that far out of touch or out of place from the series, because he possessed the kid in the second movie. Now he's possessing his own bones in this third movie. It's those visual effects are fairly, well, I was going to say fairly dated. They're extremely dated by today's standards. It's a stop motion skeleton fighting these two guys in a junkyard, and the blending of it and the backgrounds, and everything that's going on, the interactions the skeletons having with these two guys during the fight is, it's sketchy enough for 87 this came out. Yeah, for 1987 it's fairly sketchy, but $4 million budget, what can you do, guys? It's not like these days where you can do just about anything with an iPhone. It was not easy to do these effects back in the day. Anyway, Freddy kills Donald and knocks out the other guy, whose name I've forgotten again, Neil. He knocks out Neil, throws him into the hole in the ground that they have dug for his grave, and Freddy then returns to attack the others in Dreamworld again. There's a wonderful sequence whenever he reappears with these guys. They're in a hallway, and the door closes behind them, and the door has a mirror on it, and Freddy appears, and he's like, "No, sorry to keep you so long. Too bad there wasn't more of me to help me," sort of things. Like, there's all these mirrors lined the whole way down this hallway, and all these different versions of Freddy start reaching out and trying to pull the kids in through the mirrors, and they're successfully doing it. But Joey, who has been rescued at this point, and up to this stage he has been so traumatized by everything that he's been through, he can't speak. He uses his dream power voice. He screams no to repel Freddy Krueger and breaks all the mirrors, and all the kids fall into the hallway again, and Nancy mistakenly thinks that that's it. Freddy has been beaten. So we think we're at the end. Far from it. It's the old bait and switch right here. Donald, Nancy's father, appears to her like in a vision from heaven, sort of a thing, and he tells her that he's crossed over, and he says he couldn't leave the mortal coil to go to his reward without apologising to Nancy and telling her that she loves him. And of course Nancy rushes on, like, "I love you too, Daddy," sort of a thing, and the two of them hug each other, but Donald is revealed to be Freddy and stabs her in the chest with the glove. Nancy pushes him away before he can kill her properly. Freddy slaps Nancy, who falls to the ground. Believing Nancy's dead, he comes upon Kristen in order to kill her, but is still alive. Nancy reaches up and grabs Freddy's own hand and stabs him with his own glove. In the real world, Neil manages to recover from the beating Freddy gave him and drops Freddy's bones into the grave and purifies them with the holy water. And as he's splashing it down on the skeleton, we're cutting between that and the dream world, and you see Freddy and all these pieces of light start appearing all over him, and the water's actually hitting the skeleton in the real world. And then in the real world, Neil puts the cross down into the grave, puts it onto the head of the skeleton, or the skull of the skeleton, and cut back to the dream world. You see this cross appearing on Freddy's forehead, and he explodes in a burst of light, been defeated in the movie. Nancy dies in Kristen's arms. Kristen manages to awaken everyone, return them to the real world. During the patient's funeral, Neil finds, he looks across this graveyard. Nancy's getting buried at the end of the movie. Our original hero from the first movie, we lose her at the end of this one. The doctor, Neil, is lined up with all these other people paying their respects, and he looks over and he sees this strange nun that appeared earlier on, and she walks behind this gravestone, and he runs across the graveyard to go find her, and he walks around the corner to where she went, and he finds Amanda Kruger's tombstone and discovers that she is Sister Mary Helena. So this random nun that appeared throughout the movie trying to help him defeat Freddy, turns out this was actually her mother, and she was actually a ghost. So there's a nice, as far as storytelling goes, it's a tasty little film. I enjoyed it. It does have its fair amount of cheese in it. That evening, Neil's in his bedroom, he goes to sleep. There's a little Malaysian doll that Nancy gave him that's meant to bring about good dreams. Kristen, at the beginning of the movie, was making a paper mache house, which she was dreaming about, which is the house that Nancy grew up in the first Nightmare on Elm Street. So, even though this movie doesn't happen or be based anywhere near Elm Street, there is this connection. We still go back to this house from the first movie. So, it all matches nicely together. So the camera pans across the bedroom. Neil's in his bed sleeping. You see this little doll that Nancy gave him, and the little house that Kristen had made, and the window upstairs in the house lights up like a little light, like a little bedroom light from the inside, suggesting that Freddy Krueger is not completely defeated. We didn't see that coming, did we, guys? This movie is actually great. After I record this podcast, I'm halfway through doing it. After I edit this podcast and put it up, there's part of me now. I have to get up at flipping stupid o'clock in the morning and go to work. I have to be up at shortly after 4 a.m. I normally have my alarm set to get up for work, and it's now 10:28 p.m. the night before. I haven't even started editing this thing yet, but yes, part of me just wants to say, screw work tomorrow. I'm going to sit and watch this movie again because I just enjoyed it that much. It's great. If you've never seen the Freddy Krueger movies, the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, definitely check them out. It's for me, I don't know if there's any middle ground with them, really. I think that you're either going to love these movies or absolutely hate them. I have fun with them. It's just, and again, it's a weird thing to think of the character of Freddy Krueger as a celebrity, because of what the character is, who he is, what he does. It's insane that the character actually ended up with such a celebrity status, and they actually played into that there in was it Wes Craven's New Nightmare? I think I recall seeing that once, but when I say seeing it once, I was actually at a friend's house and we were watching it, but there's a lot of chit chat and a few beers in the go, so there's parts of it that I can't really remember, but I do believe, if memory serves properly, it's connected to the real world, and they fully play into the thing that the Nightmare on Elm Street movies were a movie series. And I think that Robert Englund turns up as Freddy Krueger getting interviewed in the real world, and then you've got Nancy Thompson getting interviewed in the real world, but it's not Nancy Thompson, it's Heather Langenkamp. She's playing herself, and they fully play into the fact that it was a movie, and like Freddy's on stage and he's in the get-up, the burned skin, the hat, the jumper, the glove, and he's arms in the air, taking in the applause of the audience, sort of thing. So I kind of hope that is in that movie, because if it's not, I have just talked an absolute load of bollocks about something that didn't happen, but I'm pretty sure that it did. Anyway, yes, I'm going to get off here because that's stupidly late. I need to get this here out. So guys, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do all the good stuff, that give me a little written review, share it along, all that good stuff. I love you forever. Stay safe, and I'll talk to you in the next episode. This has been a production of Coins Age Media. Thank you